A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series Natural Medicine. Today I invited a gentleman who has already done a lot in his life. He comes from the pharmaceutical field. He's a pharmaceutical representative, so someone who also trains doctors about the things that are new in pharmacy. But he's actually an engineer and chemist. He's someone who has very sound scientific knowledge and also participated in the Jugend forscht competition and even took home a title. So it's a great honour for me to be able to welcome him here today. Bernd Winterhoff, a warm welcome, dear Bernd. Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoyed coming to Rorschachberg. That's nice of you. Thank you very much. Well, we could talk about a lot of topics. One thing that would interest me, of course, is the training of doctors as a pharmaceutical representative. But then I'm a naturopathic broadcaster, so let's leave that in a different area. Jugend forscht competition. Great. So I'm always amazed at how a 16-year-old can be so active in it and then successfully take home a title. So what moved you? Have you always been a genius? No, I can't say that. On the contrary, it was just I won a very small competition organised by a local bakery. When I came home after a few weeks, my mother says, "You entered the competition and you won." I say, "What did I win?" A pound of coffee, and I was 12. What does a 12-year-old do with a pound of coffee? So my mother gave me, at that time, 10 or 20 Deutschmarks for my piggy bank, and then, of course, used the coffee herself. Of course, the consequence was that my parents had to pay the postage for many competitions because now I took part in every competition. And then, among other things, in 1970, when I was 16, I took part in Jugend forscht and submitted my work there in the field of chemistry. The question was about secret inks for espionage services, and the principle was to make a colourless, aqueous solution, odourless, but which did not damage the paper either. So take a text that has been written with a ballpoint pen or, for example, with a typewriter, and to write a text in there. And so the developer basically had to know what he was doing in order for a colour reaction to occur there. The simplest thing is to take an iron 2 solution, aqueous, odourless, doesn't damage the paper, to write with that, and the recipient didn't have to have knowledge about chemistry either. Just use the iron on it. They only had to have a small iron, turn it on slightly, and there was oxidation from iron 2 to iron 3, or reduction. And then in the end, the colour appears in brown. So that means that was rust. And a more complicated task that I set myself in collaboration with a pharmacist was a sunset reaction. We took an ergo-alkaloid from the hemp plant, that's why I worked with a pharmacist, and when various other reagents were added, a yellow salt initially developed, but then through further processes it ultimately went via orange, brown, towards deep black, therefore sunset reaction. And I was proud of that back then. So it was clear I'd go into chemistry, and then I trained as a chemical laboratory assistant at Bayer, and then afterwards went to technical college for a year to finally study engineering. I did that at the Niederrhein University of Applied Sciences in Krefeld, and then I went into the chemical industry, which means I also have the training to be a certified pharmaceutical representative. And then initially I worked for 10 years for the cardiovascular division in private practice and clinics. Then there was a change at Höchst AG and I was transferred to the area of diabetology, and I am very proud of it because for the remaining 20 years, until I left as part of an early retirement scheme, when Sanofi took over the predecessor company Aventis, I then worked as a specialist in diabetology. So I visited resident doctors and clinics and explained different therapies to them, or how diabetes can be treated with our injection systems, the pen systems. And then left in 2010, started my own business, and then luckily a few years ago, 3 years ago exactly, I discovered the company Bernhard Klein and the company GHT, a subsidiary, so to speak, or partner company. And I'm now fully committed to the subject of Kleinsche fields, because I am convinced that everyone needs to know this technology in Germany, in Switzerland, but also in Europe and around the world, because they have considerable advantages and benefit everyone. I'm with you there, so I'm also pleased to be able to talk to you about this topic. I've seen all kinds of studies, and these are scientifically sound studies, solid ones. And one that impressed me incredibly, which is from that mitochondrial expert, Miss Professor König, a great reputation worldwide. She even carried out a study with mutated cells, and the success with mutated cells, I think every person who really is suffering would have a chance. We don't know what is happening. People are individual, but there would be a huge chance here to achieve the same results as Brigitte König in the laboratory. Exactly. And you have to shout that out here. Yeah, and I think that's very good. The thing is, the work on the subject of Kleinsche fields is, of course, really important to me. Let me give you a personal example to get to the circumstances of the study data. I am very convinced that scientific research simply has to be scientifically founded, that this is not about any esoteric stuff, but about physical processes. And that's important to me for the technology, that I don't have to tell you as, let's say, as a layman, but I can prove it to you. I would like, and I also tell my partners that, for example, when we talk, whether it's a customer or a potential customer, then I say very clearly, listen to me first, but one thing is certain, and I actually begin by saying that, I want to look you in the eye today, but in 5 years, and in 10 years too. And if it's a potential end user, I'll tell them right away, maybe we'll see each other at the Nuremberg Christmas market in 10 years, if that should be possible again after Corona, and we drink a mulled wine together. Because I believe a lot is being done in this area, but a lot is also, I must say, sold improperly. And when I'm with my client, it's not about sales, but my main concern is that the person understands the technology, what's behind it, and understands, yes, that is of some use to me. And if they then use the product, they will also be successful in the appropriate direction. Back to Professor König, yes, I can only say that very simply, that's really phenomenal. When you talk about mitochondria, I always tell my clients the following example, so that it is not only highly scientific, but one can also imagine it. Imagine you basically have a fireplace in your living room. You put dry wood in there and you light in it. Everything's great, and the room is gradually getting warm. But if you get the crazy idea now and then cover all the windows and doors with duct tape so that no more oxygen can get into the room, then it's completely clear what the result is. And then 99.9% answer me, it's absolutely clear the fire will go out. Then I say, you see, that's exactly how it is with a cell, because regardless of whether it is the visual cell or the auditory cell, the nerve cell, the heart cell, the bone cell, every cell has 5,000 to 8,000 mitochondria. That means these are the power plants of our cell. And as shown in the example with the fireplace, it's absolutely clear that oxygen has to get there. And now the crazy thing, the fatal thing actually to be precise. Due to various environmental influences, it's simply no longer possible that our cells function exactly 100% because we take the oxygen away from them through various things. The first is, for example, that a lot of people take medication that we know also has negative influences, for example, on the power plants or on the mitochondria. Take, for example, the so-called acetyl salicylic acid, which is administered, for example, to heart attack patients, so that the blood supposedly remains thin, even though it's not a blood thinner. It's simply a matter of that the platelets simply don't aggregate, stick together, collapse. So what's happening? the following. They give it to everyone, but we know from studies that clearly show that it only works for 13% of users. Or take a different medication, for example. Take the so-called antibiotics, for example. We definitely know from them that the antibiotics destroy the mitochondria. If you have a child today, I have 5 grandchildren, so suddenly they're diagnosed with a cold, you go to a doctor, and what do they administer? Possibly an antibiotic. And so I can only say that, and repeat what in my youth. So at the time when I was training to be a certified pharmaceutical representative, Professor Mutschler, one of the company's pharmacologists in Germany, kept saying that every drug that has an effect also has side effects. We intervene in a complex organism. Back to the mitochondria. So these mitochondria are not supplied with enough oxygen, so the visual cell can't see 100%. Can't contribute to it, as can the nerve cell, for example. This creates a lot of things, and we can say very clearly that this is a problem, which is ultimately the basis of almost all clinical pictures. And that means, well, to put it bluntly, that is the specialty of Professor Koenig. These 4, there are only 4 laboratories in the world that deal with mitochondria, and one of them is that of Mrs. Professor Koenig. So I can only support this mitochondrial research very clearly, and I want to report it briefly. But does that mean lying on the Kleinsche fields? If you lie on it, then the oxygen transport from the lungs to the smallest capillaries throughout the body is ensured again? Yeah. That means no more cold feet. The energy production is fully back. So my ATP production increases, the self-healing powers increase. Actually, repair processes in your sleep. Yes, exactly. And otherwise, we don't have that if this oxygen transport isn't there. Exactly. Because apart, for example, if we had a person here now that we would draw blood from and we'd look at the blood under what is called a dark field microscope, then we'd find that some of the erythrocytes, so the red blood cells, which are responsible for the transport of oxygen, ultimately clump together. Key word, and everyone can read about it online, rouleau formation. Exactly. Medication is one thing, inhaling car exhaust, very topical, but also, for example, the topic of electric smog, so mobile phones, PCs. And the thing is, we're now talking about 5G in Europe or worldwide, for example. But on the other hand, we know that for sure, cancer rates will increase. Only nobody talks about it. So we talk about progress, but no longer talk about their disadvantages. The Kleinsche fields suspend this rouleau formation. This is a very crucial point for me. Yes, he showed me that in the laboratory. You lie down and actually, bang, the rouleau formation's gone. It's very, very fast. And an example from my own experience. So my wife has no scientific touch and was diagnosed 5.5 years ago with breast cancer, has been operated on, total surgery, no radiation, no chemotherapy. But women very often get a product which is progesterone, male hormones, as an antidote, so to speak, so that the relapse rate stays low. But that means, in plain language, that of course, as I have already quoted Mr. Mutschler, it clearly leads to side effects. The main side effect of these progestogen, the male hormones, that I bring into a woman's body is joint pain. It was so extreme with my wife that basically in our own house, which we rented over several floors, she pulled herself up the stairs like a 90-year-old, step by step. And I always said, Kleinsche fields. And she said, stop, that's esoteric stuff. Lying on a pad like that, then I should feel better. I say, let it be. That led us to giving up the apartment, this house. We looked for an apartment where we have everything on one floor, on the 3rd floor, but with a lift down to the basement and the underground garage. And then, surprisingly, my wife said, after living there for 3 months, put the mattress topper in my bed. I said, okay, but we won't talk about it for 4 weeks. All right? After 14 days, she said to me, "Bernd, we have to talk about it." I say, "Why is that?" "Yes," she says, "I actually hurt you." I say, "Why?" "No more pain after 10 nights. No more pain medication, and very clearly and distinctly, more energy." Before that, she did the following. She cleaned one room on Friday, had to rest, had to lie down. Next room, had to lie down. In other words, it took her almost 2 days to basically clean the apartment in the weekend. And today she sometimes gets up with me at 6 a.m. and is finished by noon. And if, for example, we're now visiting our grandchildren in the south of Germany, then it's now like this, that of course her own mattress topper, as well as mine, is in the car even before the suitcase is in. So without Kleinschefels in the mattress topper, without Kleinschefels in the insoles, she no longer walks or drives anywhere. She's become more powerful again because the cell simply, every single one of the approximately 70 million body cells, is simply better supplied with oxygen. And that's the crucial point, as far as Kleinschefels are concerned. And that's why I can say Kleinschefels are something for everyone, because we're all exposed to these negative influences. Yeah, well, I've already had some people here who told me, "Do you feel something when you lie on it?" I say, "No, I don't feel anything." But I'm not questioning it either. I know the scientific data, and that's actually just a blessing to know that the oxygen is now really well transported into every cell. So for me, I say, I don't know what could be more important than this security. I keep telling the people I talk to, whether they're medical professionals or therapists, or they're the so-called end user, it is quite simply clear and understandable for everyone that the basis of a good oxygen supply is, of course, the prerequisite for our organism to function well. Maybe 2 more examples. A friend of mine, who is a doctor's assistant, first said, "No, we don't need Kleinschefels." Then she went and had her husband tell me that they would like to have a presentation. Then I went to them, presented it, and then the husband said, "I'll buy the mattress topper for you," because she had significant back problems, back pain. And back then, because it was still relatively early, I didn't tell her everything, so I overlooked it. Today I add it, I build it into my conversations. She got the mattress topper a few days later, put it on the bed, and in the first night she jerked up in pain at 5 a.m. and said to her husband, "Bernd is right, it works." Because she was in more pain than before. Why? Because, of course, good oxygen supply also means that the cells, the nerve cells, function better. So the transmission of pain to the brain is also greater. Famous initial worsening. At first it was worsening, but it disappeared after 8 days. And then she went and said, "That's so great, I'll pass it on to my mother." Ordered a mattress topper for her mother, and told her about the experience and said, so there can be something, but she also immediately put it into the bed and lay on it, called the next morning and said, "I got up at 5 a.m. because I couldn't take it anymore," in quotes. But what did she do? For the first time in years, I took off my bathrobe, took off my pyjamas, and slept normally in a nightgown for the first time. So that was a woman who was constantly freezing and can basically sleep normally now. So the daughter did the following. Her husband has a large law firm and tax advice, and she said, "Now I'll buy you the seat topper." And that's something that fascinated me. I didn't know how she was going to use it. So she put it into her husband's office, gets there at noon and his glasses are on the desk, and she says, "What's wrong with you?" He says, "Believe it or not, but I can see more clearly." That means the reactions come relatively quick. I'm not saying that you won't need glasses anymore with Kleinschefels. I'm not saying that, but the improved blood circulation leads to the fact that vision is also improved. And that has led to the following. Her husband had a colleague in his office And the next morning he laid the seat topper on her chair and said, "You are sitting in this chair today, and tonight before you go home, come to me and report." This lady came over in the afternoon and said, "Tell me, what were you doing there? What was the thing I was sitting on?" Then he told her, "What are you feeling?" She said, "Well, I am close to a burnout. She always comes to the office, cried in the morning, and then she went home in the evening, she cried again." And she tells him now that he's her boss, "You know what? I don't know what happened there, but now the waterworks have stopped." She didn't have to cry anymore. Of course, the Kleinsche fields don't remove the underlying disease, but I am also thinking about the quality of life, and when we have reports from people who've certain clinical pictures, starting with disturbed sleep disorder or sleep disorders in general, up to topics such as autism. And then, for example, grandparents write, "We have the impression that our grandchild is brighter, more alert." Then I think it's amazing that the quality of life, above all else, is positively influenced here. We don't suspend autism, we don't suspend genetic defects, but just as far as this topic is concerned, and let's go into the area of dementia, for example, basically you can accommodate the subject of Kleinsche fields everywhere, and it benefits the user. What I hadn't asked Mr. Bernhard Klein, I then asked again on the phone. I wanted to know from him how you actually react when the body lies in the Kleinsche fields at night. And now the whole 5G network's coming to me. Now the magnetic field works from below. Does it lull me? Does it bring the oxygen clean into the cell? I have no rouleau formation, and the electric smog from outside, does it even have a chance? That's a very good and very important question, but also not that easy to answer, but I'll try to explain it. So, first of all, when I lie on the mattress topper, the following basically applies. This is the same as with the insoles. This field of the Kleinsche fields, which, by the way, is a medical device, or the technology is built into products that are medical devices. So we have them in our DIM-DI list, whether it's the mattress or the insole or the like. The depth of penetration, the field is so weak that you basically have a penetration depth of 31 millimeters. So that means if you have that in the insole, then the foot area is affected. And I'll say the effect goes to about below the knee. To the mattress topper. The moment I lie on the mattress topper and have a penetration depth of 31 millimeters, it doesn't matter at all whether I'm on my back or on my side or on my stomach. The fact is that all blood vessels in this area are then in the fields. Therefore, the dimensions of 90 times 190 centimeters leads to these blood vessels being affected. So the blood that runs through these vessels, the Kleinsche fields, are causing the erythrocytes repel each other. The magnetism is nothing more than positive-negative, and our body is electrically charged. So the erythrocytes, too, which clump together, are caused to burst apart. And then the following happens. So if I sleep on the mattress topper for 6 to 7 hours at night, then basically one cycle is completed. That means that you get up in the morning after 6 to 7 hours, and the rouleau formation has been almost 100% cancelled. So it's actually the perfect regeneration effect and also protection against electric smog. And the body can switch from the stress of the day to relaxation at night. And then it can actually recover again. Yes, that's why I say, for example, to our users of insoles who have certain foot problems, diabetic foot syndrome, circulatory disorders, walking difficulties, or, for example, pain when walking, I tell them, the Kleinsche fields. Please also take the ones in your soles into your socks at night. Why? 80% of our regeneration processes happen at night. That's why we sleep. That's why we relax. And that's what you should do with these products too, which is why it makes sense for foot problems, for example, not just wearing that for 10 hours and then to leave them in the shoes, but actually to use them overnight. If you have it. If you have it, exactly. In the Kleinschefels in the mattress topper, completely clear. Almost complete declumping overnight. Getting up in the morning with more energy, this can be proven. And that is so important to me. Dear Bernd, the airtime's over. Yes, it's really sad now. We'll just make another episode. Finish this now and do another one. Because I believe the benefits and the possible applications, we absolutely have to talk about them as well. And also, what interests me is how do we get this knowledge of the Kleinschefels out into the world? Why doesn't a pharmacy company pick it up with their hundreds of thousands of employees and take it to the doctors? Because they have to tell us. We'll talk about that. Dear Bernd, thank you very much. And you, dear viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this program. Please inform yourself about these Kleinschefels. Read about it, look at all the videos that are already available, and try to create your own picture. Thanks for watching, and all the best, and see you next time.